Animals that brought down airplanes and you won't believe it. Imagine being thousands of meters above the ground, surrounded by nothing but the endless sky and the constant roar of an airplane's engines. Everything seems calm, until an unexpected enemy makes itself known. No, we're not talking about mechanical failures or weather phenomena. We're talking about animals. Yes, creatures that on the ground might be considered harmless or simply part of the scenery, but in the air became the trigger for genuine tragedies. In this video, we will explore real, documented, and terrifying cases of how animals have caused aviation accidents. From the most unusual and curious to the absolutely chilling, each story brings us one step closer to understanding that nature can sometimes be our greatest challenge. Get ready for a journey that starts with the strange and culminates with the terrifying. Could you keep your cool if you found yourself face to face with these situations? Join us as we discover how wildlife defied technology and created stories that continue to astonish the world. Number 7. We start this list with a case so unusual it seems straight out of a surreal movie. An airplane, a runway, and a giraffe. Yes, you heard that right, a giraffe. But don't be fooled by how bizarre it sounds, because this incident could have ended in tragedy. In 2003, in the heart of Botswana, a small Cessna 172 was preparing for takeoff at Sanawani Airport, a place surrounded by the vastness of untamed nature. On board were 4 occupants: the pilot, an animal researcher, and 2 other passengers. Everything seemed normal on that sunny African afternoon, until during the takeoff roll, the unexpected occurred. A giraffe appeared, a majestic creature, yet completely out of place on a runway. In a matter of seconds, the aircraft found itself face to face with this gigantic animal, with no possibility to maneuver and avoid impact. The collision was inevitable. The giraffe struck the aircraft's wing directly, causing severe damage and jeopardizing the Cessna's stability. Amid the chaos, the pilot managed to brake the plane before something even worse happened. Miraculously, all 4 occupants suffered only minor injuries, but the plane was rendered out of service, and the giraffe, unfortunately, did not survive the impact. This case, although not fatal for those on board, highlights the unexpected risks of flying in regions where nature and technology are so closely intertwined. A reminder that even the most peaceful creatures can become the protagonists of an aviation tragedy. But if you thought that a collision with a giraffe was a one-of-a-kind, unusual case, get ready. Because at number 6 we encounter another unexpected collision, but this time the animal involved defies all odds. An incident that reminds us that even the smallest can be a great danger. Number 6. At number 6, we head to South Africa, to Kimberley Airport, where a calm afternoon of routine landings turned into absolute chaos because of an animal no one would have ever imagined. In 2010, a Bombardier DHC-8-300 was landing at Kimberley Airport. The passengers were enjoying a smooth flight, but just before the plane touched down, something unforeseen appeared on the runway: an anteater. This small animal, known for its nocturnal habits and its ability to dig burrows, had found its way onto the airport runway. No one saw it coming. During the landing roll, the Bombardier was unable to avoid it, and the impact with the nose gear was devastating. The landing gear collapsed on impact, causing the plane to slide along the runway until it came to a complete stop. Fortunately, there were no fatalities among the passengers or crew, but the damage to the aircraft was significant. The most surprising aspect of this case is how an animal so small, compared to an aircraft of that size, could cause so much damage. And although this incident ended less tragically than others, it still serves as a warning of the dangers that wildlife can pose in aviation operations. An anteater on the runway was enough to stop a plane. But now we move on to an even more alarming case. At number 5, we're not talking about a failed landing or a passenger plane. We're talking about a military fighter jet, designed for war, facing a creature you would never expect to see coming. What happened next was tragic and unforgettable. Number 5. In this segment, we travel to Spain, to the skies of Teruel, where an F-18 fighter jet of the Spanish Air Force encountered an enemy that was never on its radar, literally. On October 4, 2024, Lieutenant Colonel Pablo Estrada Martin was piloting an F-18 fighter jet on a routine training mission over the Teruel region. With years of experience and a plane designed to withstand combat, it seemed that nothing could go wrong. But in aviation, the unexpected always lurks. At high speed, the fighter collided with a vulture, a large bird that frequents the mountains of Spain. The impact was devastating. The bird struck directly against the cockpit of the plane, severely damaging the control systems and leaving the pilot with little time to react. In an attempt to maintain control, the lieutenant colonel tried to maneuver the fighter to avoid a greater catastrophe. However, the damage was too severe. The F-18 quickly lost altitude and ended up crashing in a mountainous area. Unfortunately, the pilot did not survive. The collision with the Vulture, an event that might seem insignificant in the face of the technology of a combat aircraft, proved fatal. This incident not only underscores the vulnerability of aviation to the dangers of wildlife, but also serves as a reminder that nature can always surprise us, even in scenarios of maximum technological preparedness. But what follows in segment number 4 is a case so devastating that it marked a before and after in the history of aviation. Here, we are not talking about a single animal, but about a collective threat that sowed chaos and left an indelible mark. Number 4. At segment number 4, we travel to Boston, United States in 1960. What seemed to be a routine flight turned into an air tragedy caused by an enemy as small as it is lethal. A flock of starlings. On October 4, 1960, Eastern Airlines Flight 375 took off from Logan International Airport in Boston. On board were 72 people, including both passengers and crew. The plane, a modern Lockheed L-188 Electra, promised a smooth flight to Philadelphia. But just minutes after takeoff, something unexpected happened. An enormous flock of starlings crossed the plane's path. The engines, designed to withstand some collisions with small birds, could not handle the impact of hundreds of bodies entering the turbines at once. The result was catastrophic. 3 of the 4 engines failed almost instantly, leaving the crew with limited control of the aircraft. Despite the heroic efforts of the pilots to return to the airport, the plane quickly lost altitude and crashed near the port of Boston. The tragedy resulted in 62 fatalities, making it one of the deadliest accidents caused by bird strikes. This incident marked a turning point in aviation, leading to the development of advanced systems to deter birds from flight paths. Although starlings are small and seemingly harmless, this case demonstrated that even the smallest creatures can become a lethal threat when acting in numbers. But the case occupying segment number 3 is even more incredible. Here, a clash with nature not only unleashed danger in the air, but also led to a desperate maneuver that will forever be remembered in the history books. Number 3. At number 3, we travel to New York, to the cold winter of January 15, 2009. U.S. Airways Flight 1549 was taking off from LaGuardia on an apparently calm morning. No one on board imagined that minutes later, they would become the protagonists of an event known as the Miracle on the Hudson. U.S. Airways Flight 1549, piloted by the experienced Chesley "Sully" Sullenberger, was destined for Charlotte, North Carolina. Everything was going according to plan until, just 3 minutes after takeoff, something unexpected occurred. The plane collided with a flock of Canadian geese, large, heavy birds that entered both engines of the Airbus A320 simultaneously. The damage was catastrophic. Both engines failed completely, leaving the aircraft without thrust. With only seconds to decide, Captain Sullenberger and First Officer Jeff Skiles quickly evaluated their options. Returning to LaGuardia or trying to reach another nearby airport was not possible. With the plane rapidly losing altitude, Sully made a bold decision to ditch in the Hudson River. The maneuver was flawless. The plane touched the water with the precision of a surgeon, remaining intact and floating on the surface. All 155 passengers and crew on board survived, thanks to the bravery and skill of the crew. Although the collision with the geese did not destroy the plane, this case highlights how close it came to becoming a tragedy. The Canadian geese, with an average weight of 4 kilograms each, are capable of causing devastating damage to engines, especially when they appear in large groups. The miracle on the Hudson is not only a lesson in professionalism and maintaining composure under pressure, but also a reminder that even the best airplanes are at the mercy of nature. But what occupies number 2 on our list is something completely different. Here, the threat did not come from the sky or the water, but from inside the plane. An unexpected predator transformed an ordinary flight into an unforgettable nightmare. Number 2. At number 2, we travel to the Democratic Republic of the Congo, where on August 25, 2010, a charter flight ended in tragedy because of a fierce predator that, although small compared to the aircraft, unleashed absolute chaos on board. The flight in question was operated by a small lead L-410 airplane, used to transport supplies and passengers on remote routes. On board were 19 people and 2 pilots, Chris Wilson and Danny Philomote, in addition to an unusual cargo, a crocodile hidden inside a bag, intended to be sold. During the flight, the crocodile managed to escape from its confinement. Once it emerged from the bag, the animal, overwhelmed by panic and stress, began moving violently throughout the cabin. Fear gripped the passengers, who in their desperation tried to take refuge in the pilot's cockpit. This sudden movement of people drastically altered the plane's center of gravity, irreversibly destabilizing the aircraft. Despite their efforts, the pilots were unable to regain control. Just 100 meters from their final destination, the plane crashed into an uninhabited house. Of the 21 people on board, only 1 survived, who later recounted the events to investigators. The most disturbing fact was that the crocodile had survived the initial impact, but was euthanized shortly afterward by rescuers. This case is not only a reminder of the risks associated with transporting live animals on flights, but also a warning of how a single mistake can have catastrophic consequences. Thus far, we have seen astonishing cases: a giraffe in Botswana, an anteater in South Africa, a vulture in Spain, birds in Boston and New York, and a crocodile in the Congo, all causing chaos in the air. But number 1 takes us to the Congo of the 1950s, where a flight faced an enemy that unleashed absolute terror. Number 1. In the 1950s, a Douglas DC-3 cargo plane took off from an improvised runway in the Congo. Its mission was to transport medical supplies and food to isolated communities. On board were 2 pilots, a flight engineer, and some local passengers. But it also carried a special cargo, a container holding captured snakes destined for a zoo in Europe. What seemed like a routine flight would soon turn into one of the most terrifying stories in aviation. According to reports, the flight proceeded normally until the largest snake in the container, a giant African python over 7 meters long, managed to escape. The lack of proper materials to seal the container allowed the reptile to break free in search of refuge, unleashing chaos on board. The enormous reptile appeared in the cockpit, possibly attracted by the noise of the turbines or in search of a dark space. The pilots, caught by surprise, lost control of the plane. The co-pilot managed to send an incomplete emergency message. "Something in the cockpit. It's huge. We can't control the plane." That was the last message before the plane disappeared from radar. Days later, a search team found the remains of the plane in the middle of the jungle. The most chilling discovery at the scene was that the snake's body was coiled around the co-pilot, as if it had tried to attack him or cling on in its final moments. Scratches and tooth marks inside the plane suggest that the snake fought intensely to break free for much of the flight. Additionally, the bodies of the occupants showed signs of strangulation and bite marks, indicating that the python caused several deaths before the impact. The most mysterious aspect of this case is the locals' accounts. According to them, the hunter who captured the snake had spoken of a mystical reptile that protected the jungle, a creature that should never have been removed from its habitat. This supernatural element has shrouded the accident in a halo of legend, blending facts with local myths. This case deserves the #1 spot due to the combination of elements: the size and danger of the animal, the chaos unleashed during the flight, and the tragedy that claimed all lives on board. But beyond the facts, what makes it truly terrifying is the mystery surrounding it. Was it simply an accident, or something more sinister? To this day, the remains of the plane remain hidden in the jungle, leaving many questions unanswered. One thing is clear: this cursed flight will be remembered as one of the most chilling stories in aviation.